One of my favorite lightweight trainers of the year last year was the Rebel V4 from New Balance. This year, it may not look like a huge change, but there's some pretty significant differences. So which one is right for you? The New Balance Rebel V4 or the V5? Let's break it down. What's up everybody, I'm Eric McIntyre, aka Rad Dad Bod, and you're watching Rad Dad Bod TV, where we review running shoes. Now today we're comparing last year's model of the Rebel with this year's newly released Rebel V5, and if it's your first time watching one of my videos, you may notice some timestamps below. Feel free to jump around to the various parts of the review, but if you do so, I would sure appreciate if you come back and watch the full thing when you get a sec, as I put a lot of time and effort into these comparisons. And if you've been a viewer for a while now, but you haven't yet hit that subscribe button, please consider doing so today and turning on notifications so you get notified every time I drop a new video, which is typically Monday through Friday. Now really quickly, some quick disclaimers and disclosures on these shoes. The Rebel V5 was sent to me directly from New Balance for the purpose of review. That being said, I'm not being paid, nor am I obligated to include it in any specific content. I'm not given talk tracks or talking points. No one watches the video beforehand, and all thoughts are entirely my own. With the Rebel V4, I did buy this one with my own money. Now, to kick us off, let's talk about the intended use of these shoes. So the Rebel series falls into that lightweight daily trainer category where it can kind of work up or down. So lightweight daily trainers tend to be actually more oriented towards performance. So they're shoes that you can run daily in, sure, but really they're more of the traditional racing flats where you can go and you can hit some intervals on the track in them. You're going to get a decent amount of ground feel underfoot, or at least traditionally you would. They're going to be explosive, they're going to be fast, and you're going to be able to do, a little bit more performance based, less recovery based, and oftentimes they're going to be a little bit too fast for easy days for a lot of people. So that's how we're going to be discussing these shoes today. Now, from a price standpoint, the shoes come in at $140. That was true last year. That will stay true this year, which is huge as running shoes continue to climb. The Rebel V4 is one of the best bang for your buck shoes on the market, hands down. So really nice to see it stay at that $140 price point. And I think for a lot of reasons, that's going to be really nice for this year's model. From a specs perspective, the V4 came in at 7.4 ounces, which is 210 grams, and then the V5 a little bit heavier at 7.5 ounces and 225 grams. And I think a lot of that comes from the midsole, which has increased 1 millimeter in stack height, but I think has gotten a little bit wider. So we'll talk about that, but we're looking at 34 in the heel, 28 in the forefoot for a 6 millimeter heel to toe drop on the V4, and it's 35 in the heel, 29 in the forefoot for a 6 millimeter drop in the V5. So again, slightly taller, slightly heavier. Overall, pretty much a similar or same setup. Now, one of the first notable changes to me is in the fit of the shoe. So the Rebel V4 fits notably wide throughout the entire shoe, so toe box, midfoot, and heel, and then fit maybe a little bit short to the point where if you were wide-footed, you could half size up because of the wide fit, but if you were narrow-footed, you were kind of stuck with it because it did fit overly wide. For me, I'm a pretty standard foot shape. I felt like it was a little bit short, but I was able to make it work and really, really enjoyed the shoe. With the V5, I do feel like it fits a little bit more true to size lengthwise. I don't think people are going to need to size up or down. And then from a width perspective, I feel like it got a little bit more streamlined. So it's still wide foot friendly, right? It hasn't gotten narrow by any means. It's still, wide in the toe box, maybe a little bit more standard in the heel, and then I would say standard to wide in the midfoot. But it still is going to be, again, wide foot friendly, just a little bit more streamlined. Now moving to the upper, it's still a Phantom Fit upper. The Phantom Fit upper in the Rebel V4 though was a little bit difficult to get locked down. So I did use the runner's knot with it. The upper was very, very breathable, was very, very comfortable. You didn't have a ton of excess cushion, and in fact, the heel counter here was a little bit rigid, but for me, I didn't have any issues with that digging into the ankle. My real complaint about the upper, the V4, was that the tongue was so ridiculously short that if you did a runner's knot, it would basically have the tongue sliding down or the laces kind of digging into the top of your foot. And despite it being fully gusseted, it didn't really lock you in place super, super well. So there was a little bit of shifting in the shoe, which is why I needed the runner's knot with the shoe. So overall, the upper was breathable, it was comfortable, but there was a little bit of lockdown issue. And that paired with the tongue, just, the fit of it was a little bit, it left a lot to be desired. All of that has been fixed in the Rebel V5, in my opinion. So I will say that the upper of the Rebel V5 has a little bit more cushion in the heel. It's a little bit more comfortable overall, just in general, like a little bit more premium feeling experience, which again, for a $140 shoe is insane. The tongue is now longer, right? You can see it's a standard length tongue, which is huge. And the gusset or the elastic on the side seems to be a little bit more tight to where it really does hug your foot in that midfoot area and keep you locked in. So there was no shifting whatsoever. The shoe remains breathable. It's really, really nice. You still have that phantom fit overall upper, really nice breathability, so you're not going to overheat in the shoe. The tongue is a little bit thicker, so it is going to be a little warmer than the V4, but overall the upper as a whole, huge upgrade in my opinion over the V4. You can do a runner's knot with this one and you're not going to be concerned with the length of that tongue. Now moving to the midsole, this is a bigger change that I think even New Balance anticipated, right? So when I first saw the V5, I actually got to see it at the running event at the end of last year, and when I saw it, I visually, like I went audibly like, wow, that's a pretty big change. And one of the product designers looked at me and was like, really? Like, we feel like we didn't change very much because everyone loved the V4, but the midsole has a slightly different geometry, right? It's subtle, but if you look kind of in this area, the midfoot area has a little bit more foam. So it's a little bit wider here in the midfoot or kind of getting back towards the heel than the Rebel V4. It's subtle, but it's still the same PIBA EVA blend. So it's still soft, it's almost squishy underfoot. I don't know if I'd say mushy because it is responsive. So it's a PIBA blend. I don't know what percent, it's PIBA EVA, but it bounces off the ground really, really well. The V4 was a little bit chaotic though, and like that's kind of what made it fun. It was lightweight, it bounced off the ground, it wasn't stable, so if you had stability issues, it wasn't the shoe for you, but it felt like a race shoe, and I remember thinking like, man, just stick a carbon fiber plate in there and you've got magic, right? So it was unstable, it was chaotic, but it was fun, it was bouncy, it was explosive. With the V5, they added just 1 millimeter of extra foam, but it just seems to be a little bit wider, specifically here kind of in that medial midfoot area. So it's a lot more stable, like significantly more stable in my mind. I didn't really shift around, or I wasn't like teetering over in the shoe at all. I still don't know if it would be great for stability needs because it is a very soft foam, and so if you naturally collapse, like it's going to allow you to collapse. It doesn't have like a medial post there, but it is a lot more stable than the V4, and you kind of, I don't know if maybe the sidewall comes up a little bit more in the V5, it's hard to tell, but it feels like it's a lot more stack, not just 1 millimeter more stack. So really, like, it feels like, and so the V4, really fun for fast runs, really fun for kind of shorter runs, easier, like if you're running easy, you want to maybe go shorten it. You know, I felt like the foam kind of bottomed out though once you got closer to that 10, 11, 12 mile range. Right out of the box, I did 11 miles in the V5 and was amazing. Really, really supportive, really soft, just carried me throughout the run. No issues hitting any of my paces. I felt fast, I felt smooth. And I think that it just lends itself a little bit more towards a standard daily trainer feel than a lightweight up-tempo trainer feel, which I think for some people is going to be really, really good. For some, they're going to feel like they're frustrated and they're missing some of the fun of the V4. But I do think it makes it a little bit more pace versatile of a shoe and a little bit more widely usable for a lot of people. Now moving to the outsoles, I'm not sure if the rubber compound itself has changed, but I do believe it did. So the V4 had solid overall grip, but sometimes that would get a little bit slick if the roads were wet. Full disclosure, I don't have wet runs in this shoe just yet, but the grip does seem to be a little bit more aggressive, and it just seems to grip the road a little bit better overall. So I do feel like the outsole is an upgrade. I have emailed New Balance to see if they changed the compound or if it's just the overall like design of the outsole that they changed. So we'll see what they say. I'm hoping to hear back from them before my full review of the V5, but I do think that the outsole is overall an upgrade. You still have some exposed foam there on both shoes, and you can already see, I'm only about 2 runs in, I'm just under 20 miles in the V5, and you can already see there, you're getting a little bit of, you know, wear and tear already there in that kind of that lateral midfoot area. And, you know, over 50 miles in my V4s and like really no wear and tear. There is a little bit on the rubber itself, but not on the exposed foam. So we'll see if there's durability issues with the foam in the V5, but all in all, I do feel like the outsole is an upgrade. And frankly, I think a lot of things in the V5 are an upgrade, but they've kind of changed how the shoe is going to be used in my mind. So this is a good natural transition to my pick between the two. And I don't know if I would pick between the two, to be honest. So for one, I really do like the Rebel V5. The Rebel V4 was my second place lightweight trainer of the year last year, and probably a top 5 overall shoe for me last year. Like, I absolutely loved it. I thought it was going to be my #1 lightweight trainer. I would take this over the Nova Blast, which won my standard daily trainer of the year. I might take the Rebel V5 over the Nova Blast for my standard daily trainer this year if I wanted to consider it a standard daily trainer. So like, as a lightweight trainer, I think the Evo SL, for example, is a better shoe. As a standard trainer, I'm between the Aeroglide 3 and the Rebel V5. But that's kind of to tell you a little bit of how I'm thinking of the shoe. Like, it feels more like a standard daily trainer. I need to go and do a couple more strides, like more faster paces in the shoe to test it out, because maybe it can go just as fast as the Rebel V4. But like, I don't really want to pick between these two. I really like them both in a rotation, where if I'm going easy or if I'm going long and I'm not going to hit like really aggressive workout paces, the Rebel V5, really awesome, really solid overall shoe. But if I wanted something for short and fast intervals, the V4 would still be my preference between the two. So I don't know if I can decide between the two shoes right now, and I really am having a hard time, honestly, in where to put the Rebel V5 in my rankings for 2025. So we'll have to think about that, because already the daily trainer category is absolutely stacked. So TBD. I'll do another update at the half year or at the end of June for like Q2 update for where things stand. But as of right now, it's in limbo. So, but yeah, just some final thoughts. You know, it's crazy because the shoe is so similar to last year, but a couple of things that are really, really nice, and I'm not sure where to rank it. Where when I wore the Rebel V4 last year, it was like a no-brainer, like that's going to be a top shoe for me in my rankings somewhere. And I think that speaks more to the overall running industry as a whole, and just how crazy running shoes have gotten and the technology that's being used in them right now. So really, not a knock on New Balance. The Rebel V5 is a phenomenal shoe, but I'm really excited to see what they did with their Elite, because they've made some big changes with the Elite. I should be getting that shoe. Can't wait to review that one and see what New Balance is going to continue to do with their performance line. So Rebel V5, awesome, awesome shoe. A little bit different though than the Rebel V4. So if you like the V4, you may not like the V5, or you may like it, but for different reasons. So anyway, that's the comparison there. If you stuck around this far, I sure appreciate you. Let me know in the comments what questions you have or what comparisons you'd like to see of other running shoes that I have on my shelves, or ones that should be coming in the next few weeks. And also let me know if there's anything that I can be doing better to make these videos more enjoyable for you, or just give me some feedback. Let me know what you enjoyed about today's comparison and what questions you have about the Revel series. And if you watched this far and you haven't hit the subscribe button, haven't turned on notifications, please do so now. And as always, we'll finish up with a question, which is, do you use lightweight trainers in your shoe rotation? And if so, how do you utilize them? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks, everybody.